What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Shoe Show. Hopefully you guys are having a phenomenal Sunday. If you guys are tuning in on Monday, hopefully you guys are off to a great Monday as well. Now, I haven't seen you guys since Monday, and I knew it was going to be kind of a wild week when I previewed for. Make sure we have audio real quick. Yes, we're good to go. So, as I was saying, I knew it was going to be kind of a wild week. Typically, we'll go live 2 times a week. We're starting to get that in, but I've never been live, at least as far as I can remember, on a weekend. But here we are. Hopefully, you guys had a very blessed Christmas time, and you guys enjoyed family time and everything along those lines. Still, obviously, it's kind of in that little bit of a weird space up until we get to New Year's, obviously, and then we start right into 2026. So, on today's show, I wanted to make sure I went live with you guys, gave you guys a recap of the mega fight that went down in Japan on Saturday morning. We'll be getting into all of that, talking boxing news of everything that went down throughout the duration of this past week. So we got a lot to get into on today's show. Now, if you're tuning in on X or Facebook, make sure to hit that like, that share button. I greatly appreciate that. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure to smash that likes button. Also, if you guys scroll across the little area where the like button is, there's now a hype feature. If you guys can click that hype feature for myself, that would be absolutely huge. That helps with the show and grow it a lot as well. But as always, if you guys have any comments, topics, questions to debate, or whatever the case may be, make sure to leave those thoughts in the chat, and I'll make sure to have those comments come up on the screen. We'll go back and forth, debate, talk about it. I'll answer your questions, whatever it might be. Leave those thoughts in the chat, and I will be addressing them as we go throughout the duration of today's show. So another bit of news as I wait for everybody to get into this live is this aspect. So I'm not going to be going live most likely next week. Okay, I'm taking off the final week of the new year, the last week of 2025 / first couple of days of 2026. Now, here is why. There's going to be a lot of changes, which I will be announcing sometime in the new year. That's either going to be between Thursday to Sunday, in which we'll be announcing a lot of things. And I mean a lot of things. There's going to be a new show I'll be launching in the new year. Just give you guys a little preview. Also going to have an extension of the Shoe Show being released. I'm going to be kind of breaking that down as well. And then I'll be moving the dates around in terms of what dates each and every single show will be going down as well. So that will be going down and being announced next week. Now, for those of you that tune into Path Across Podcast, that podcast will still be releasing tomorrow, as it always does on Mondays. And besides that, I'm going to be taking next week off. So just to give you guys a bit of a heads up in regards to what's going to happen in the future. But that full announcement will be released sometime in the new year, so between Thursday and Sunday. And then the first full week of 2026, I'll be giving you guys all the news and updates and everything along those lines as to what the show is going to look like in the new year. Lots of big changes, exciting things, which I will be announcing next week. So let's get right to it, though, without further ado. Mega fight went down in Japan on Saturday morning. And first and foremost, I want to know your guys' thoughts on it. Who was the most impressive performance? What's your guys' thoughts on the card? I'm just going to kick it off with this. We had the undisputed bantamweight championship on the line. Naoya Inoue was fighting Alan Picasso. And let me just be honest, I didn't do a full-on fight preview because of the holidays and everything going down, but it went exactly as I planned. Listen, this was never going to be a competitive fight for Inoue. When you talk about Naoya Inoue, this is a man who is special. He was never going to lose to Picasso. It was never going to be a competitive fight. It was never going to be a fight that anybody thought would be challenging. And that's exactly what happened. Inoue went through there. He won the scorecards 119, 109, 120, 108, 117, 111. He retains WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, and Ring Magazine belts, all which remain in his possession heading into 2026. So, was anything shocking there? Absolutely not. Did Alan Picasso look good? I mean, he did his. No. He was fighting Inoue. He was fine, you could say. But I'm not going to dive into that man too much. I'm going to talk about Inoue. Naoya Inoue deserves the respect of every single boxing fan. I'm sick and tired of people saying, well, this is a man at a lower weight class. So be it. This is a world champion who rightfully should be either 1 or 2 in everybody's pound-for-pound list. This is a man who has defended his belt 4 times in a single year. 4 times. What other world champion, let alone pound-for-pound great, is moving the way Inoue does? This is a man who has defended his belt 4 times in a calendar year. Put some respect on that man's name. And let me go even a step further. Inoue is one of the most entertaining fighters to watch in all the sport. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You can guarantee action and entertainment every single time he fights. And let me even go a step further than that. This is also a man that not only is a superstar inside of that ring, the second you step foot outside of that ring, Inoue is even a greater person there as well. The flaws when it comes to this man are slim to none. And so when people want to continue to rattle off talking about, is this man, this, that, or the third, just put some respect on this man's name. He is a legend of the sport. He's going to be going down as one of the all-time greats. He is a superstar of this generation. What he has done in boxing is phenomenal. And let me just make this very clear. Naoya Inoue is a man who I firmly do believe would beat and will beat every single man at 122, every single guy at 126, and there might just be a couple guys at 130 that he could give a run for the money in as well. That's how special this man is. And so when everyone wants to sit up here and keep critiquing this man because he's a lower weight class, please stop. This man is the truth. He is a legend of the sport. Put some respect on Inoue's name. Now, let me go a step further. Just a little bit of information as well. Inoue was reportedly paid $25.6 million for his bout with Murat Gassiev. I mean, Turkey Al-Sheikh pays well. I do not know if that's a confirmed source. That's the rumors that's kind of been coming out of the situation. It wouldn't shock me. When you talk about what Turkey's paying some of these guys, that's not shocking at all. And so, congrats to Inoue. He got the bag for Christmas. But I just want to go a step further about this. I just mentioned the fact of what Inoue can do in regards to 122, 126, maybe even 130. Yeah. When you talk about everybody at 122, when I watched what Inoue did on Saturday, it reminded me of this. The Junto Nakatani fight is going to be a hyped up fight. Everybody still wants it. It's still one of the biggest sports in boxing. It's going to be the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. But let's be honest right now. When we watched Naoya Inoue, let's just keep it real. Nobody's beating Inoue at 122. I don't care who you pull from 118. I don't care who you've got at 122 currently. He is going to beat every single guy at 122. Junto Nakatani is phenomenal. He's not beating Naoya Inoue. And I think we saw that on Saturday morning. You look at 126, it's not the best weight class in all the world. And I think you look at every single guy right there, I think Inoue could go undisputed at 126 as well. The time where challenges will actually start to come for Naoya Inoue is at 130. That is the weight limit that I look at for him, and I say, you know what? That will be pushing it for himself. And if he gets to 130, there are some guys who would give a run for the money in. But generally speaking, that's actually going to probably be his threshold in terms of where he could actually reach in his career. But in terms of 122, nobody's beating him. I don't care who you pull up. That includes Ben Rodriguez. That includes Junto Nakatani. Anybody you want to pull up, Inoue beats him. And then in terms of guys at 122 currently, 126, Inoue beats all of them. It's just a fact. This man does not get hit too much, and when he does get hit, for some reason it flips a switch in his mind, and he turns up even more. And then when you talk about his defense, it's solid, but then offensively, he's one of the most explosive, powerful punchers in all the world. There is nobody at 122, nobody at lower weight class that can pull up, and nobody at 126 that's going to beat Naoya Inoue. And that's just a fact. When I watch this man fight, he is special, and that is why I believe he rightfully so should be either number 1 or 2 in pound-for-pound list. Him and Usyk flip-flop it however you want to do it. Those are the 2 top guys in boxing with Bud Crawford now retired. Let's head over now into actually a couple other things I want to get into. Well, actually, I'm going to get into this one right after talking about Junto Nakatani. So let's hop into Junto Nakatani. Junto Nakatani made his 122-pound debut against Sebastian Hernandez. Via unanimous decision, he won 115-113, 115-113, and then the scorecard that shocked the world, 118-110. All right, let me just say this for a moment. Actually, I'm going to pull up this referee's name. I have it saved in my phone. I forgot to actually completely save it because I actually want to call this man out. Absolutely ludicrous what we witnessed here right now. I'm going to pull it up real quick on my phone. I know I got to save where to go because absolutely ridiculous. This man right here. Now, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name, but Nawaf Alamihad. Well, I don't know if that's correct or not, but who cares? You guys get the point. This man somehow watched Junto Nakatani and Sebastian Hernandez fight. And in some wild world, this man thought that fight, which in my opinion, Sebastian Hernandez either won or it was a draw. He thought Nakatani won 118-110. And this pisses me off. This happens too often in boxing where we have some wild judge out there that wants to sit up on his high horse and watch some completely different fight than anybody else in the world was watching. 118-110? You're telling me that fight was that wide for you? In what world? Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't want to make too many stipulations. I don't want to start too many, hypothetical theories here. But what this man did, it makes you only think of one thing. Was he trying to rig this fight? I mean, in all honesty, we know what was at stake in this fight. Nakatani Inoue. One of the biggest fights he can make in all boxing. The biggest fight probably in Japanese boxing history. And this judge wants to go up there and give 118-110 scorecard. One of the worst scorecards, not just of this calendar year, but of boxing history, to be honest with you. Sebastian Hernandez either won that fight or it was a draw. If you give Nakatani the win by a round or two, I'll deal with it. But 118 to 110 is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous because Sebastian Hernandez fought the fight of his life. He went out there and proved everybody wrong and gave Nakatani the toughest fight of his entire career, to the point where many people do believe this man won the fight, and he put it 118 to 110. In what world was he watching this fight? In what world could you possibly say that? I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. So this judge, he needs to be he should never, ever, ever judge a fight in the remainder of his life. He should be banned from judging fights because that's inexcusable what you did right there. You screwed over Sebastian Hernandez and you put a tint on his record right there that shows him not being what he truly was in this fight. So horrible scorecard right there. I think he deserves a lot of flack for that one. Now let me go a step further though and kind of break this fight down. Sebastian Hernandez is who I'm going to start this fight off with. Yeah, nobody thought he was going to win this fight. Most people, myself included, thought he would have been knocked out of this fight, call it round 8 at the maximum. No, this man is tough as nails. Sebastian Hernandez earned the respect of fans all around the world. Whoever watched that fight looked at this man and said, you know what, that is a warrior. He gave Nakatani his toughest fight of his career, and Nakatani has fought some legitimate guys in his career. But Hernandez went up there and he pushed Nakatani to his absolute limit. This man made a name for himself, and although he did not win this fight, what Hernandez did do is this is a man who now boxing fans universally is going to look at and say, you know what? I want to watch this man again. And can I throw out a hypothetical matchup for you? Who would not want to go out there and witness Ramon Cardenas versus Sebastian Hernandez? If you were to ask me, both those guys took on two of the biggest stars in all boxing, especially Japanese stars, in Nakatani and Inoue, respectively. And what we witnessed was two guys that were massive underdogs in that fight, still lost the fight, but they came out there and earned the respect of everybody. Warriors. Put up a great grueling fight. Had good moments in their fights. This is a fight that I want to see happen in 2026. Ramon Cardenas, Sebastian Hernandez. Two guys at 122 that made their mark this year, provided two of the best fights of the year. I mean, we're talking fight of the year contenders right here. And these two guys deserve the respect. They deserve more paydays. And I would love to see that fight happen in 2026. But let me fast forward into Junto Nakatani. The talk for the past few weeks, maybe months, you might say, has been, is Junto ready for 122? Not necessarily can he compete with 122. That's never been the question. The question has been, is he ready for the guy at 122? We all know the fight that people want to witness, Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani, Tokyo Dome 2026, likely happening on May 3rd. That's been the rumored fight for many, many months now, maybe even a year at this point in time. But was Junto going to be ready? And let's be honest, while Sebastian Hernandez fought the fight of his life, he did incredible work there. He's not Naoya Inoue. And so what I witnessed from Junto Nakatani was he started off the fight very well. Those first few rounds he controlled very, very well, but the tide switched very quickly mid-fight. And all of a sudden, that looked like a problem. We started to see a lot of weaknesses exposed in Nakatani. We started to realize that, okay, this man is actually struggling. And then all of a sudden you get to a point where Hernandez is actually starting to stack some rounds for himself. And you're starting to wonder, is Nakatani going to win this fight? To the point where many people, myself included, had Hernandez winning that fight by a round. If it were to be a draw or even the 115-113 scorecard, so be it. The point of this is this. Hernandez is not Inoue. He is a good fighter. Very, very good. Underrated, to be honest with you. But Hernandez is not Naoya Inoue. And so all of a sudden, this big rumor talk for Inoue Nakatani is starting to kind of look like, okay, I think in this fight, it needs to happen. We need to see Inoue versus Nakatani happen in 2026. It is one of the biggest fights in boxing right now, and it will probably be the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. That being said, I think what we witnessed on Saturday was that, you know what? Inoue is that guy. Inoue is not going to lose anybody at 122, and while this fight must happen between Inoue and Nakatani, I don't think it's going to be as competitive as people expect. I think this fight needs to happen, but Inoue will come away comfortably and win the fight. It will not be a bad loss for Nakatani. Don't get that twisted. Nakatani's going to be just fine, but I don't think this fight's going to be competitive. I think Inoue's going to go out there, be the massive, massive favorite, and of course, Nakatani has every chance in the world to prove everybody wrong. He has a chance to have that knockout power and knock out Inoue, but generally speaking, from a boxing standpoint, when you're looking at evaluating this fight, Inoue will be the massive favorite heading into this fight. And this fight might have had a little bit of its hype dimmed a little bit just because it was not the statement win by Nakatani at 122. So we'll see what happens, but this fight needs to happen in 2026. But let's be honest. I think we all know the winner of this fight. Inoue's going to walk away as the world champion, keeping all of his belts intact at 122, and he'll remain undisputed. That's the way the fight will likely go down in 2026. So for Nakatani, I say there's a few things. Will I give him a little bit of excuse? Yes. I will give him a lot of credit on one hand. This man went out there. He fought a good fighter at 122. Hernandez is no joke, as I just said. And I know there's a lot of pushback from Nakatani's camp where they were saying, you know what, we're moving up to 122. We're not looking for a top contender, competitive guy. We just want to get our feet kind of wet at 122. And Turki Al-Sheikh wanted to push the belt a little bit and say, you know what, go out there and fight somebody better. Here's the guy we want you to fight. And they did it. And you know what? When Turki's going to pay you a lot of money, it is what it is. Now, for Turki's standpoint, I will be honest. Is he ever going to learn? Like, this fight was so close to being completely screwed over. I mean, Hernandez legitimately had the script in his hand and was about to rip that script up. Had that referee and the judge, my apologies, not the referee, the judge, not had some crazy scorecards, there's a legitimate chance that Hernandez went in there and was going to rip up the script for Inoue Nakatani. That's how close that was to happening. And I think when you talk about that aspect right there, you know, Turki probably needs to learn at some point that you can't keep trying to script these fights to happen. You can make a big old hyped up fight. You can try to put 2 and 2 together. But at some point, Turki's got to realize putting guys in there with other top guys when you're trying to make the fight happen is risky business. So it almost happened again on Saturday. If Turki were to go out there and say, you know what, we're going to make this fight happen, and Nakatani would have lost that fight, Nakatani in a way probably doesn't happen anymore. So we'll see what happens there. But I'll give props. Nakatani went out there and fought a good competitive fight. He went out there and fought a good challenger, a much better challenger than a lot of guys probably expected. And Hernandez is much better than Picasso as well. We already knew that heading into the fight anyways. But for Nakatani, it just was not that statement win. And there are a lot of question marks now moving forward for him at 122. So we'll see what happens there. But that is the situation. Now, moments ago, I did reference this other point. I said, okay, I want to talk about this in regards to Inoue. There is rumors right now that Inoue and Bam Rodriguez is the fight that they want to make happen eventually. Now, we've heard these rumors for some time, but let's be honest right now. If Inoue were to fight Bam Rodriguez anytime in the near future, Naoya Inoue is going to win that fight. I love Bam Rodriguez. Pound for pound top 5 guy, in my opinion. An elite fighter. A guy that's going to be one of the faces of this next generation of boxing. A true superstar and all-around talent. But listen, he's going to have to move up essentially 2 weight classes. And if Inoue beats Nakatani in May, there's a good chance Inoue makes the jump to 126. We're talking 3 weight classes possibly. Now, of course, Bam can move to 118, make it only 2 still. But the point is, it's going to be a big weight jump regardless. And if we're talking pure skill and talent, you would be probably stretching it a little bit by saying that Bam is more skilled and talented than Inoue. And Inoue's a little bit past his prime. Sure, I'll admit that. But I just don't think this is the fight we need to see. If there is a fight to make, Bam versus Junto is much more of a bigger fight than Inoue and Bam. There doesn't make much sense to see Inoue and Bam Rodriguez fight each other. I know it would sell well. It would be a fun fight to make, but Inoue has all the advantages in the world. I'm not as hyped about that fight as I were to be hyped about a possible fight between Bam and Junto. So we'll see what happens. But if I were to pick a fight I want to see, it would be featuring Junto Nakatani and Bam Rodriguez. So we'll see what happens there. All right, then we were supposed to have another massive fight on this card. Willibaldo Garcia, who was the champion, was supposed to fight Kenshiro Teraji for the IBF Super Flyweight title. Now, Willibaldo Garcia, his IBF Super Flyweight World title fight against Kenshiro Teraji ended up being canceled due to Garcia falling ill, was in the hospital. Lots of issues there. I think he's going to be okay, but that fight obviously got botched. There were supposed to be plans to try recovering the fight so Teraji could stay on the card. Did not end up happening, so Teraji did not get the extra fight underneath his belt, and it stinks, and here's why. Bam Rodriguez is going to go for undisputed. And let's be honest, would you rather see Bam Rodriguez fight Garcia for undisputed or Teraji? Obviously, everybody would pick Teraji. Bam versus Teraji would be a mega fight to make, so it does stink from that standpoint, but at the same time, we're all waiting to see what Maloney's going to do. Maloney's the guy that gets a shot next, and so Bam's going to have to either find a way to pay this man out, make him to step aside, or he makes the big fight happen some way, somehow. So we'll see what happens here, but it's going to be a negotiation process now because with this fight now not happening, Garcia's going to have to go to the table now with his team. They're going to have to go to the drawing board and kind of figure out where they go from here. Can they get a step aside from Maloney so that Bam can come in and fight him? We'll see what happens now, but obviously Bam wants to go undisputed at 115. If not, he could be moved to 118 in 2026. So lots of negotiations will have to start happening now in regards to the situation here. Other fights on the card, Erickson Garcia, he defeated Tega Imanga via split decision, 96-93, 95-94, 95-94. This was a massive upset. If you're not familiar with Imanga, he was one of the rising prospects in all of Japanese boxing. He lost his first fight of his career to Garcia. And then super bantamweight Reito Satsumi, he defeated Willibaldo Quintana via fourth round TKO. Solid performance from the young prospect there as well. Other notable fights that went down this past weekend, staying in Japan, Yabuki, he defended his title. He stopped Felix Alvarado in round 12 to defend his IBF flyweight title. On the undercard, and actually, let me pause on Yabuki. Can we give some more respect to Masamichi Yabuki? This is the man, if you're not familiar with the lower weight classes, please go watch this man. He is an absolute warrior. He deserves more respect. This man probably has some of the most entertaining fights of the calendar year. He is always going to be entertaining. One of the best champions, a guy who probably should start working his way up on the pound-for-pound ranking list. He already is in my top 20 right now. So keep your eye on this man. He's a phenomenal fighter, deserves more respect. And the way this man's improved, too. He gets better and better as he gets older, and he's now in his 30s, and he still keeps getting better. So that's impressive, especially for a guy at the lower weight classes. Then John Rio Casimiro, he scores a fifth-round stoppage win over Tom Mizukoshi, and that was the other Japanese card that went down. So let me know in the chat. What's your guys' thoughts on this week overall? Who was the top performers on this weekend? Who was guys that you had thoughts on? Let me know in the chat. I'll make sure to have those chat comments come up on the screen, and then we'll break it down. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this weekend's fights. Let's get into some boxing news, though. Now, actually, before I transition into this, if you guys have any comments or topics, please do leave it in the chat. Your comments, like I said, will pop up on the screen, and we'll go back and forth in that regard. On top of that, though, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button for myself. I greatly appreciate that. That helps with the show a lot. Also, if you swipe over a little bit on the like section to the hype button, that also helps a bunch. Hit that hype button for myself. It helps promote the show a little bit more. So I greatly appreciate you guys for doing that. If you guys are tuning on X and Facebook, smash that like button and share button. I appreciate y'all for that as well. Let's get into some boxing news now, though. Netflix has revealed that Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua drew 33 million live viewers worldwide. I say that was phenomenal. I mean, 33 million viewers for boxing. We don't see those numbers too often. In comparison, though, Canelo versus Bud Crawford earlier this year, it surpassed 41 million viewers. And then Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, they pulled in, the record 108 million viewers. So let me just make this point very clear. When a lot of people look at these facts about Jake Paul, Jake Paul is one of the most controversial, polarizing, and let's just keep it honest, hated fighters and hated people right now in the entire United States of America, maybe even the world. A lot of people do not like Jake Paul, and I get it. Is he controversial and polarizing? Absolutely. He's the best man outside of the ring. That's debatable. But let's be honest right now. What Jake Paul is doing for boxing is good. He helps women's boxing more than just about anybody else in the entire world right now. What he's done with Most Valuable Promotions is huge. He puts more eyes on the sport of boxing than pretty much any boxer in the world. Listen to these numbers. He has 33 million viewers from the Anthony Joshua fight. He brought in 108 million viewers on the Mike Tyson fight a year ago. These are viewers that probably would not be tuning in if it were not for him in the fights he were making. That is good for boxing. The more eyes on the sport, the better it is. For people that want to sit up there and say it's bad for boxing, I think what's happening right now is within your mind, you're confusing things. You're letting your hate blind you from the fact that it's actually benefiting the sport of boxing. Now, if this man were to be given a world championship shot undeservedly, then guess what? We can have a different discussion. But at this point in time, all he's doing is stepping foot in the ring, drawing eyes on the sport, and giving his undercard and women's boxers bigger paydays than they've ever had in their entire lives. I can't think of too many other boxers currently doing that for the sport. So when we talk about guys that are actually good for the sport of boxing, you can like him, you can hate him. But at the end of the day, you can't deny the fact that Jake Paul is actually good for boxing, and those numbers right there only back that up a little bit more. Now, in regards to Jake Paul, I said all those things about him, but let me add one more fact. He's also a little bit crazy. Because he said this, now he was doing an interview, I believe it was on Logan Paul's show, his brother obviously, and he was saying, with his mouth still swollen and surgically operated on just a few days prior, he brought up who he wants to possibly fight next, and he wants to fight Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul says this, I told everyone that I do better than Francis. Francis kind of got no chin. Francis is low-key soft. I'll fight Francis. I think maybe now he'll take the fight. All right, so let's rewind back. First and foremost, Francis Ngannou had one of the biggest bag fumbles that I've ever seen. Francis Ngannou was offered the fight instead of Anthony Joshua, and he turned it down for foolish reasons. he blew one of the biggest bags he could have ever gotten in his life for absolutely no reason. That was confusing in and of itself. But now Jake Paul says he wants to fight Francis Ngannou. Now, obviously, there were a lot of funny jokes made. Francis Ngannou got lit up early in the fight. As for Jake Paul, he lasted until round 6. I'm not really going to look at it too much. It is what it is. Jake Paul ran a lot of the fight. We'll put it like it is. But Jake Paul wanting to fight Francis Ngannou is genuinely actually hilarious. Now, Jake Paul's going to have a long recovery. I don't see this fight happening anytime soon, but it is what it is. Jake Paul and Francis could possibly happen in the future. Would I want to see it? Probably not. I really think Francis Ngannou's stock has dropped drastically. The way he's been managed and what he's doing in his life right now has really kind of been detrimental to his career, but it is what it is. I don't think it's going to happen, but Jake Paul wants Francis, so let him have it if he wants it. Let's get some real boxing stuff, though. Deontay Wilder has an eye on a fight with Murat Gassiev following his knockout win over Kubrat Pulev. All right, so Deontay Wilder is going to fight Alexander Usyk. Usyk was at the fight this past weekend in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He was asked about the Wilder fight, and he once again hinted at the fact that, yes, indeed, that fight might just be happening. And so if you are Deontay Wilder, this fight makes a lot more sense. I would prefer to see him fight Gassiev right now, but let's be quite frankly honest with ourselves. If Wilder has to choose between Alexander Usyk and Gassiev, I think we all know who's going to pick. Obviously, it's going to be Alexander Usyk. Why? Usyk's the world champion. It's 3 the belt. Alexander Usyk will be a higher payday. And the hypothetical chance that Wilder wins that fight, Wilder has a much better name on his resume. One of the best wins we've ever seen in boxing history. So if you are Wilder, you're picking Usyk's fight. But if the Usyk fight does not come to fruition for Deontay Wilder, the Murat Gassiev fight makes plenty of sense. This is a fight where Gassiev is a good fighter, solid, but if Wilder has a chance against anybody that has a belt or has significant standing, I would say this is one of the guys that Wilder has a shot at. So this is a fight I actually would not mind him doing. I get why he's eyeing it, and so we'll see if he actually gets that fight to come to fruition. But as I said, odds are quite high he's going to end up fighting Alexander Usyk, and we'll move on from that point. I'm going to get water real quick, then head right back into the next topic. Test. All right, should be right back on now. All right, so Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson undercard has now been confirmed. Let me get the camera fixed up real quickly. All right, there we go. We should be back on perfectly squared up. Now let's make sure we got the audio still rolling well. All right, so let's get into this aspect, though. So Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, well, we know that fight's going to happen January 31st, a mega fight happening at Madison Square Garden. But we now have the undercard revealed. I'm going to reveal it to you guys first, and then I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of each fight. Keyshawn Davis, Jermaine Ortiz will be the co-main event. Bruce Carrington, Carlos Castro, the next fight. Carlos Adames versus Austin Emma Williams. Jarrell Big Baby Miller versus Kingsley Iba. And then Ziad Almasuf versus Kevin Castillo. Massive fights going down right here on this card. I love this fight card. I think it's not the best card of all the ring ones we've seen, but it's solid nonetheless. Obviously, Keyshawn Davis makes his return. Adames is a good fight right there. Bruce Carrington solid as well. And obviously, he's going to go for his world championship. So lots of good fights on this card going down at Madison Square Garden. But let me make a few points. I'm really going to emphasize Keyshawn Davis right now. Keyshawn Davis had an interview, and he said, you know what? He says his next fight will likely be at welterweight, which is 147. And then we find out news that Keyshawn Davis is actually going to be fighting at 140 against Jermaine Ortiz. So I'm a little bit confused on what's happening here, but let me just say this. Keyshawn Davis versus Jermaine Ortiz is the perfect fight for Keyshawn Davis to get himself acclimated to boxing again. Listen, Keyshawn Davis said that he wants to move up to 147 welterweight. He said that could likely be his next fight, in fact. But here's the deal. Keyshawn Davis needs to get himself back into boxing. Getting himself back into boxing on a massive card at Madison Square Garden to the undercard Shakur versus Teo is exactly what Keyshawn Davis does. So whether or not Keyshawn Davis moves back up to 147 after this fight or sticks at 140, this is what Keyshawn Davis needs. When we talk about 2026, this is going to have to be the year that Keyshawn Davis revolutionizes his career, revives it. When you talk about Keyshawn Davis, this is a man who 1 year ago, following the fight card where he had the massive knockdown, became world champion on Valentine's Day. We were looking at Keyshawn Davis as that next superstar in American boxing. That's the way the American public eye and even the world at large was viewing Keyshawn Davis. We viewed Keyshawn Davis as a potential world champion that was going to be one of the next stars of American boxing. Push comes to shove, Keyshawn Davis blows everything up on June 7th in Norfolk, Virginia. And I said this right after this occurred. He's going to have to take some time outside of the ring. Get himself right mentally, get himself refocused, make sure he mentally checks himself and gets himself right. Because if Keyshawn Davis gets himself right, he's going to be A-okay. And so here's the deal. Keyshawn Davis is now returning on January 31st. The biggest question about this man is going to be, is he right mentally? Because if Keyshawn Davis gets himself right mentally, Keyshawn Davis is going to be a problem. He was a guy that we all looked at as being a potential superstar for American boxing in the future. We all said that about him leading up to June 7th in Norfolk, Virginia. Then he blew it all up at that night. But that does not mean the skill set and the talent's gone now. If he is mentally right on January 31st and he has a masterful performance against Jermaine Ortiz, that hype will be reignited immediately. And that's why I'm looking at 2026. This is the year in the fight that we're all going to have all eyes on Keyshawn Davis. I'm ecstatic about this because I'm still a Keyshawn Davis believer. Yes, that's always going to be a stain on his resume and his record and his name because of what happened last year or this year. But that does not mean his career is over. He can redeem himself, but it all comes down to what does he look like in the ring against Jermaine Ortiz. If he has that masterful performance that we're all looking for, Keyshawn Davis could all of a sudden head himself back right into the conversation of being a rising star in the sport of boxing. So all eyes will be on Keyshawn Davis on January 31st, maybe more eyes on that than any other fight on that card for that one reason. And by this time next year, Keyshawn Davis could have himself solidified as being one of the biggest stars in American boxing once again. But as for the rest of that card, I just look at it. Bruce Carrington, Carlos Castro. I think Bruce Carrington easily wins that fight. I don't think it's even going to be competitive, but still a good fight for Carrington nonetheless. Adames Ammo Williams is intriguing. Ammo's a guy who I do think is a very good contender, but not a world champion. So I don't think that fight's going to be too competitive either. I think Adames will be the easy favorite. Jarrell Big Baby Miller should win that fight as well against Kingsley Iba. The first card on that fight I'm not really going to talk about, and it's not too big of a deal. And then Teo Shakur, I've given my thoughts on that fight way too many times. Obviously, I'm going with Shakur in this fight, but nonetheless, it's a 50-50 type fight. I'll be breaking that down more so we get into January. Let's head into this. Artur Beterbiev and David Benavidez appear to be interested in fighting each other in the future. So both Artur Beterbiev and David Benavidez were going back and forth with each other. And they both seem inclined to fight each other. All I can say is this. Can we please get that fight? I think when we look at the most entertaining fights to make in all boxing, Benavidez, Beterbiev is probably right there as that biggest, most entertaining fight. I get it. I want to see the trilogy between Beterbiev and BIVOL. I would love to see BIVOL better Benavidez. But in terms of what's the most entertaining fight to make, you can't tell me Benavidez versus Beterbiev is not right there. That's one of the most entertaining fights to make in all boxing. Two guys that are absolute killers in the ring, that want that knockout, that have a killer mentality, and you put those two guys in the ring, I can guarantee you're going to get something you spelled out with 3 letters. W-A-R. Yes, those two guys would go to war in that fight. So I would love to see that fight between those two guys. Hopefully it happens, but only time will tell. Benn tells the ring that there are concrete plans to face Ryan Garcia if he can get through Mario Barrios in February. This is what Benn says this. Cinco de Mayo sounds good to me in regards to Benn versus Ryan Garcia. He goes even further to say that these plans are concrete plans if Ryan Garcia beats Mario Barrios. And let me just say this. I get it. A lot of people want to hate on the fact of Ryan Garcia and Benn possibly fighting each other for a world championship. Is it right in terms of, boxing structure and order? Probably not. But let me make this very clear. Boxing is a business. If we are looking from a business standpoint, Benn, Ryan Garcia, if Ryan Garcia defeats Mario Barrios and becomes world champion, is a mega fight to make. Is it the fight that every fan in the world wants? I don't know. That's up to your own opinion. But what I do know is this. Those two guys are two of the biggest names. One being Benn is one of the biggest names in British boxing. The other, Ryan Garcia, is one of the biggest names in American boxing and even in, Mexican, Latina boxing. This is a fight that you're combining multiple cultures. You're taking together two different big brands and putting them inside the ring. Whether this fight goes down in the UK or the USA, this is a fight that would sell great. So yes, is boxing a business? Absolutely. That's why we're seeing this type of situation happen right now. Am I a big favorite of the fan of these two guys fighting each other from a moral standpoint of did they both earn their ways up to fighting at 147? I don't really care at the end of the day. It's boxing. And it's a business. These two guys sell more than anybody else. 147 is a dead weight class. It's a dead weight class. We can all admit that. And so you need some juice to happen at 147. How do you inject 147 with some more attention, some more juice? You put two of the biggest trash talkers, two of the biggest personalities that would give us one of the best build-up processes that we've seen in quite some time, and a fight that would be very entertaining. Because if we get the old Ryan Garcia in there against the Conor Benn that you can always count on, that fight would be somewhat of a war. It'd be a very fun fight with knockout potential. So yes, am I a fan of this fight happening? Absolutely. I think Ryan Garcia, Conor Benn is a fight that I hope to see happen. And if Conor Benn is true here, saying, you know what, let's put it for Cinco de Mayo weekend, I'm all for it. Let's see it Cinco de Mayo weekend. Chris Smith is to become a free agent. Former WBO cruiserweight champion Chris Smith has confirmed that his current promotional deal with Boxer expires at the end of the year, which would make him a free agent. All right, this is hilarious. And let me say the comment real quick, then I'll break it down. No, this is Chris Smith, FYI, and it's from the boxing scene. No, I don't know yet where my promotional future lies. I'm contracted with Boxer until the end of the year, but they could easily offer me something in the meantime or even after that period, and I could fight with him again. Okay, so obviously the door's still open for CBS, and this man is not a massive name, but when you talk about cruiserweight, Chris Smith is one of the biggest names at cruiserweight. It's a pretty crappy weight class. Jai Opetaia is there. Zurdo's there. Hypothetically, Benavidez is sort of kind of there right now, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And then you have Noah Mikhailian and I'd say Chris Smith. Outside of those guys, it's a lot of, guys that are just either old veteran dudes that are not good or young prospects working themselves up. If Boxer cannot retain CBS, then they're going to continue the downfall. Boxer has to retain CBS. I don't care what they have to do. They've lost too many guys. It's time to lock in and get Chris Smith locked in. But if he's not available, this is huge. Jai Opetaia could go for a fight with him. Noah Mikhailian could go for a fight with him. End of the day, we know one thing. Benn Shalom and Boxer don't know how to get their fighters the right fights. We've seen it time and again. So if you're Chris Smith and you could get offered a deal from Queensberry, Matchroom, or anybody else, or even just go by a fight-by-fight basis, I think that actually would be better for his career, but we'll see what happens with that. All right, so I talked about a couple weeks ago, Zuffa Boxing. Zuffa Boxing will be debuting the day before UFC's debut on Paramount, and here's what we're going to find out. Two of the fights being finalized for the debut of Zuffa Boxing include Callum Walsh versus Carlos Ocampo and Sergey Bohachuk versus Radzhabab Batuev. Are either one of those fights good? No, but I said this was going to be something that's going to happen. We're going to see some of these guys with Zuffa Boxing now and 360 Promotions with Tom Loeffler come onto this card, and it's going to be against guys that just suck. That's what 360 Promotions has typically always been. We don't see a lot of big fights get made, and so Callum Walsh, we want to see him step it up. We want to see bigger fights from him. This will be another easy KO. For Sergey Bohachuk, I get it. Obviously coming off a loss to Brandon Adams, getting himself a win in the win column, not the worst idea in the world, but that's what we're looking like for Zuffa Boxing's debut on Paramount. Sulaiman Segawa is slated to return to the ring against Rene Zurdo Palencios on January 30th on a ProBox TV event in Maryland. Just keep an eye on that one. It's going to be happening on ProBox TV. All right. I talked about the undercard for Shakur and Teo, and I left out one portion there, but I do want to touch up on it. Richardson Hitchens will no longer fight in the co-feature on the January 31st Ring 5 event, headlined by Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. Hitchens was rumored to face Jermaine Ortiz. All right. Richardson Hitchens is a good fighter. I think you still have a lot to debate about him as to whether or not he's that guy or not, but here's the biggest problem when it comes to Hitchens. This is a guy, while very talented, he's not staying active. If you're looking at a man like Hitchens, his resume is still quite questionable. There's many fights for him to go out there and make, but he's, quite frankly, not making those fights happen. And that's the problem with Hitchens. I think this man is a very good, talented fighter. But why is he not on this card? If you are Richardson Hitchens, unless you have a massive fight lined up for yourself off of this card, there's no reason you're not on this card. If you had the option to fight Ortiz, be the co-main event to Shakur and Teofimo Lopez in your home state, I think that's probably the fight you need to be on. There's no excuses that Hitchens is not on this fight card. And this is the problem with him. If you want to grow your brand and your name, these are the type of cards you should be a part of. I don't know the backstory. I don't know why he's not on this card. But unless you have a big fight card lined up for yourself somewhere else, this is a card that Hitchens needed to be on. If you want to grow your name, your brand, both nationally and internationally, you need to be on this fight card. So Hitchens not being on the fight card with Shakur and Teofimo Lopez in the co-main slot is a legitimate problem. You wanted way too much money to fight Keyshawn Davis. Now Keyshawn's at fault there as well. And then something happened with Jermaine Ortiz. What are we doing right now? Hitchens is a man who has a very good talent. He has a lot of potential, but you have to put it all together at some point in time. At some point in time, you need to start growing your brand because you're not getting the big fights. You're not the biggest sell in the world. And at the end of the day, we need to see more from Hitchens. Nobody's locked in on this man being the truth yet. He's very, very good. Don't get that twisted. But we need to see Hitchens be managed better. He's re-signed with Matchroom. Kevin Connolly is obviously his manager as well, and they've kind of renegotiated deals. But we need to get Hitchens moving in 2026. This inactivity, not fighting the best guys, it needs to stop. We need to see Hitchens go out there and make a big fight that grows his brand or unifies and becomes a unified champion at 140. That's the only topics we can get into with Hitchens. We need to see bigger things happen from this man because at the current moment, it's not looking too promising for his career. So him not being on that Shakur and Teo undercard is very disappointing. He should be in that co-main slot, but him not doing so is only doing him an injustice to his career and growing his brand. I gave my thoughts last week, I believe it was, on Devin Haney, Lewis Crocker, and guess what? It's not expected to get made. Eddie Hearn has said this now. He said the potential Devin Haney, Lewis Crocker unification fight. On this, he says this. Unless Turki Al-Sheikh turns around and makes that fight, who's going to pay the money for that those guys want and need for that fight? Because it doesn't guarantee it. If we can make the Devin Haney fight, or if we can make a big fight with Keyshawn Davis, or whoever it's going to be, we'll look at it. But right now, we're going to make a defense. Eddie Hearn says that Keyshawn Davis and Lewis Crocker is a fight that they are interested in at 147 next. When you talk about Lewis Crocker, here's the deal. This man does not sell very well. Yes, you can go put him in some decent places in the UK, but end of the day, not a lot of people have a lot of respect for this man. He's a good fighter, sure. He became world champion very questionably and debatably, but he's not that guy right now. Can we be honest? Lewis Crocker's not that guy. And so for everybody at 147, they're all gunning for him. Even guys at 140, Keyshawn Davis, who actually has never even fought at 140 yet, are looking at Lewis Crocker because he's barbecue chicken, if you will. He's a guy that everybody looks at and say, you know what? I know I can beat that guy. I can become world champion easily. But the problem is you're not going to get a lot of money. So Devin Haney, a massive cash cow, he doesn't want that fight. Why? There's no money involved. And that's the problem for a lot of these guys. And so for Lewis Crocker, don't expect a big fight next. Unless Turki Al-Sheikh wants to make it and set one of his guys up to become world champion or to unify, we're going to see a situation where Lewis Crocker will defend his belt against somebody that's just decent. He'll go up Belfast probably. He'll defend his 147 belt. And then maybe later on in 2026, we'll see him in a bigger fight where he's going to lose that belt. That's my game plan. That's what I think is going to happen. But just an update on Lewis Crocker. CACACE-DICKENS on March 14th. Former champion Anthony CACACE is expected to challenge WBA super featherweight titleist Joseph Dickens on March 14th in Dublin, Ireland. I love this fight right here. CACACE is a guy who I really don't know why he dropped his belt to begin with. I know it's a big payday, but it felt weird. And then ever since that payday, he's been trying to work his way back up into world championship status. Makes no sense to me. But here's what I'm going to say. What is Raymond Ford doing right now? I love Raymond Ford, but we got to get this man moving. Why did Joseph Dickens, who just lost his fight, he was supposed to be on the Japanese card this past weekend, why is Raymond Ford not getting involved right now? It baffles me. CACACE is a man who was supposed to fight Raymond Ford. And now we've turned around and Raymond Ford is not even going to get this fight against Joseph Dickens. I mean, how is this possible? Let me rephrase this one more time. Raymond Ford was supposed to fight Anthony CACACE just a little bit ago. That was the fight. CACACE got hurt, and then Raymond Ford ended up still staying on the card, did his job, so on and so forth. Now push comes to shove, and CACACE is going to get a shot at a world championship against Joseph Dickens while Raymond Ford is at home. I mean, in all honesty, what is going on with this Raymond Ford situation? It makes no sense. He's not getting any of the fights he wants at 130 right now. And I'd love to see them. But what are we doing right now? It just baffles me. Raymond Ford deserves a world championship shot. I don't know what's going on with the management component, but whatever it is, 2026 has to be the year that Raymond Ford gets a world championship. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on the segment with Raymond Ford because I'm a big Raymond Ford supporter. I think he's a great fighter. When we look at 2026, Raymond Ford needs to get his world championship shot. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And we've gotten to a place now where I'll look at Raymond Ford and I say he's done everything. He's already been a world champion at 126. He has defended his belt and tried to defend his belt against a fight where he was weight drained badly. Obviously lost it, but still was very competitive. And many say he beat Nick Ball in that fight. And now you go to 130. He has done his job so far at 130. He has a great promotional group. He's already been on Turkey Ashi cards, yet he can't seem to get a world championship shot at 130, and it baffles me. If you're Raymond Ford, you deserve a world championship shot at 130. I don't care who it's against, one of these guys. But for me, I look at it from Raymond Ford's standpoint, it has to feel like a slap in the face. You have a man who you were supposed to fight against Anthony CACACE. And guess what? In my opinion, he would have beat CACACE. But anyways, you were supposed to go fight CACACE. CACACE gets hurt. He pulls out his fight. Raymond Ford stays on that card, does his job, wins the fight. And now we're finding out CACACE is going to give himself a world championship shot against Jonathan Dickens while Raymond Ford sits around and is waiting for that shot. It baffles me. It makes no sense whatsoever. And so all I can say is this. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but Raymond Ford has earned the shot. He's good enough, and it's time to get him a world championship shot early in 2026. Let's stop playing games. Eddie Hearn and all these guys, they got to work together and get him this title shot because he deserves it. And 2026 must be the year that Raymond Ford gets a world championship shot at 130. All right. John Hedges will be offered a Pat Brown fight. Eddie Hearn says this. He'll be making John Hedges an offer to defend his English cruiserweight title against 2024 Olympian and top prospect Pat Brown next. I like this. Listen, John Hedges is a good young fighter. I like watching him a lot. Pat Brown, obviously a phenomenal UK British cruiserweight as well. This is a fight I want to see. When we talk about the cruiserweight division, hopefully we can start getting some more names up there. I mentioned a little bit ago, cruiserweight sucks. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cruiserweight is a very rough weight class that we're all looking for young guys to kind of rise up and, maybe do something at some point in time. I'm going to make sure we get this all lined up right. All right, whatever. Anywho, we need to make sure we get to a standpoint where we're starting to realize, cruiserweight has some prospects and we get more guys competitive. Hedges and Pat Brown are two guys I look at and say, you know what? These are guys who have a bright future. These are two guys who I think, could be competitive in the cruiserweight division. Now, America has some guys too, but British-wise, the two guys, Aloys, and obviously you have Riley in there as well. I want to see some of the guys start fighting each other. And so if we get Pat Brown Hedges in 2026, that's a fight that I actually would love to see right there. I'm trying to see something nice work. My screen got all weird on my... There we go. All right, should be back up and running again. Cool. Anywho, I don't know, something's going on my YouTube app, but we'll get that fixed up momentarily, and hopefully we'll be able to proceed with the show. Should be coming up all well. All right, there we go. We're back up live. There we go. Something weird was going on my computer screen or my laptop and my iPad over here, but we're all good to go now. My apologies for the little interruption right there. But yeah, so we'll get the John Hedges and Pat Brown fight next. Dimitri Bivol's return will be in Saudi Arabia. Eddie Hearn has confirmed that unified light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol has a contract in place to Riyadh season to return in Saudi Arabia, likely in spring. It's very likely he'll come back and fight one of his mandatories before hopefully fighting Benavidez or particularly the Beterbiev 3 fight. Listen, I get it. I'm frustrated. I want to see Bivol in the rematch with the trilogy with Beterbiev ASAP. I want that to just be taken care of. I don't want to keep this trilogy kind of going on and on and on. I want it to come to a conclusion. But if you are Bivol, you're coming off of a serious injuries, multiple injuries. I'm not going to fault the man for needing a tune-up fight. And of course, the tune-up fight is going to be defending his belt, so it's not a bad tune-up fight anyways. But hopefully we get a situation where we see Bivol more active next year and we see him fight 2, maybe even 3 times and have that big fight. Hopefully we get the trilogy over with in 2026 and then Benavidez gets his shot later on. So it's kind of a weird situation right now, but hopefully that's what comes to fruition next year. Some other fight news, Albert Ramirez will defend his WBA interim light heavyweight title against Lerone Richards on February 5th in Montreal, Canada. Solid fight right there. And then an IBF is ordering an elimination bout between Brand Adams and Keeman Agyarko. The winner of that bout will be the mandatory challenger for the winner of Bakamur Savalia versus Josh Kelly. Another one, very good situation right there. Agyarko has had a phenomenal 2026. Brand Adams, the same can be said about him. And now the two guys get a shot at becoming the mandatory for a 154 belt. And that's huge. So obviously they're probably going to have to fight the winner, Bakamur Savalia. I don't think Josh Kelly will be too much of a competition, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I do like those fights getting bid right there. Now the purse bids for that fight are scheduled for December 30th. So we'll see what happens. Obviously it's in 2 days from now. Hopefully this fight gets narrowed out and negotiated and we'll get that fight locked in at some point in the future. Another interesting news about Zuffa Boxing is this. We've now gone to a place where Rayo, remember the world champion, Rayo? Yeah. He is now signed with Zuffa Boxing. All right. I'm going to have a little bit of a segment on Zuffa Boxing real quickly. When we talk about Zuffa Boxing, I get it. A lot of people have controversies, have topics, and debates about Dana White. But let me say this. Don't let your thoughts on Dana White influence whether or not you think Zuffa boxing is going to work. I see a lot of people out there saying the fighter pays and this, that, and the third. Well, guess what? We're seeing countless fighters leave top promotional companies to go to Zuffa boxing right now. Rayo is the most recent one. We've seen guys from Top Rank. We've seen guys obviously from 360 Promotions. And we've seen guys from multiple other groups now transition over to Zuffa boxing. And so there must be a reason behind that. Because why are these guys leaving standard promotional companies that follow the rules that many people like now transitioning into Zuffa boxing? Questionable, right? Well, here's my point. When you look at the details, Zuffa boxing has a lot of things going for them. They're going to provide insurance and training and medical stuff, lots of things. Now, I get it. Will the payments be a little bit less? Sure. But at the same time, you have to look at these boxers. Why are so many members of the media and fans going to try to hold so strong to this foundation right now that Zuffa boxing is bad for boxing, that Dana White's going to destroy the sport of boxing, so on and so forth, when your opinions are typically based upon fighter pay and who Dana White is as a person? But yet, the fighters that you're trying to defend are the fighters that still sign with Zuffa boxing anyways. Nobody's being forced to sign with Zuffa boxing. You can do what you want to do. But what we are witnessing is countless fighters keep on transitioning over to Zuffa boxing. Does it make you wonder a little bit? Maybe, just maybe, Zuffa boxing not so bad. Now, I can't be the judge here. I personally do not know whether or not Dana White's idea with Zuffa boxing is going to work in the long term. I'm not going to say it's going to work because I don't know. But what I do know is that this man has been ultra successful when it comes to what he's done with the UFC. And guess what? A lot of fighters are happy. It is what it is. And so now it comes over to boxing. He's going to try doing his thing, his brand, his style in boxing. And we're seeing a lot of fighters come to Zuffa boxing. So if I were fans and I were the media, I would sit back for a moment and say, you know what? Why should I keep sitting up here and try to defend this? Why should I keep trying to push back against Dana White and what Dana White's doing when guess what? The very people I'm trying to defend, they like Dana White anyways. So really, who are you defending? That's the place we're at today. So if I were you, as we head into 2026, which is going to be the year that Zuffa boxing, Dana White officially starts their process of integrating themselves into boxing, just sit back and see what happens. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Maybe nothing happens, it's just another promotional company. But what I do know is this. Time's going to continue to pass. Boxing's not going to go anywhere. And this time next year, we will have a month or 12 months to a year of data collected to see what Zuffa boxing actually brings to boxing or maybe doesn't bring. And then we can start to judge it. But at this point in time, let's stop the critique of Zuffa boxing because guess what? All you're doing is combating guys that are actually in support of Zuffa boxing in and of itself. So we'll see what happens here. But yes, Rayo Valenzuela is now part of Zuffa boxing. Upcoming fights expected on Turkey Al Sheikh shows include this: Anthony Joshua versus Rico Verhoeven, or a to be determined opponent. Dimitri Bivol versus Michael Eifert. Hamza Shiraz versus Diego Pacheco. And then Callum Smith, David Morrell. Obviously, the AJ fight's a waste of time. AJ will knock him out. I wish it would just go to the Tyson Fury fight, but it is what it is. Then Dimitri Bivol, Michael Eifert. Solid fight, but guess what? Bivol's going to win that fight. And so we were really looking at another fight. Hamza Shiraz, Diego Pacheco, once again. I don't think it's a competitive fight. I think Hamza Shiraz will blast Diego Pacheco out of there. And so really the only fight you're looking at right now, which is actually a phenomenal fight, is Callum Smith, David Morrell, which I think we will see early 2026. So that's the fight to really look at. But I'm sure, listen, Riyadh season cards, Turkey's going to make them nice. Don't worry about it. These are just some ideas that's going to come out. But honestly, when I look at those 4 fights listed right there that's been rumored, the only one that actually appeals to me is Callum Walsh and David Morrell. But we'll see what happens there. The last bit of fight news. Now, let me just say this real quickly. If you guys are tuning in on YouTube, please do hit that like button. And if you swipe over a little bit to the hype button, hit that as well. I really, really do appreciate that. That helps out with the show tremendously. But if you guys are tuning in on Facebook or X, hit that like button, that share button. That also helps out a ton. And also, if you guys have any more chats or topics for me to discuss on today's show, even if you guys disagree with me, leave it in the chat. Your comment will come up on the screen, and then we can go back and forth as well to wrap up the show. But you guys have some time to do that because I'll get into my last segment of the show, which is this. IBF featherweight champion Angelo Leo is now moving forward with his mandatory title defense against Reis Aleem. Leo had previously planned to do a voluntary defense instead. So this is interesting. Angelo Leo had some other fights planned. I think it was a New Mexico fight on a pro box card in February, maybe it was March, I forget off the top of my head. That's not off the books, and instead he's going to fight Reis Aleem, which I think makes a lot of sense for two reasons. One, you get taken care of your defense you need to do, your mandatory, and then secondly, Reis Aleem was a bigger fight than anyone else who's going to fight. This is a good American fight. Aleem has earned the shot. He's a good fighter. He had a masterful performance out there in Japan last month. And so I think if you're talking about this fight, you get more money if you're Angelo Leo. You get to take care of your mandatory defense. It makes plenty of sense. So I actually really do like this fight right here. That should be going down in early 2026. With that being said, I do not see any more comments in the chat. If you guys do bring anything up, I'll make sure to go address that before I conclude the show today. But I'm going to check on Facebook and YouTube real quick. Yeah, we don't have any more comments here. So with that being said, I know I start off the show with a little bit of an introduction to you guys. Here's the deal. Next week, I do not plan on going live. Now, things could change, but odds are I'm going to take off the rest of this new year as well as the first couple of days of the new year in 2026. I've got a lot of stuff I'm going to be announcing, okay? Now, for those that tune into the Path Across podcast, that episode is still releasing on Monday, as it always does, because I was pre-recorded a long time ago, and I was released the episode, and the content comes out there. But in regards to the boxing show and anything else I ever do, that will be paused for this upcoming week. I know there's going to be a Amanda Serrano fight going down, some other solid fights. Obviously, won't be doing a fight preview of that fight, but enjoy that fight going down on Saturday. There's not too much going down this weekend, though. However, enjoy those fight cards if you guys do tune in. Have a great week. But I will be announcing a lot of big news this upcoming week. The reason I'm taking this week off is to enjoy some time with family, sure. But the biggest thing is I'm going to be announcing a lot of changes in the new year. Either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I'll be announcing everything. So what to look forward to. The boxing show is not going anywhere. It's still going to be present, but the days will be changing. Also have more set on times and dates for the show as well. So make sure to tune into that. I'll be having the show more organized in terms of different days. And then Path Across podcast will still remain intact, although that will be to change into a different release date. And then I'll be launching a brand new show in the new year. I'll be announcing that show this upcoming week as well. And then also I'll be having an extension of the shoe show, which will be a new variation of it coming out next year as well. So that calendar schedule and news and everything else will be released to you guys when I get back on the new year in this few days. So stay tuned for that. But I will be back live with you guys talking boxing in the very near future. I hope you guys have a great rest of the year. Enjoy your next week of life. May God bless you guys all. Have a great new year. I will see you guys back next year. May God bless you guys all. And with that being said, shoes out. God bless you guys.